An epic clash between terastallization and mega evolution, a Nidothing and Iono collab, the search for Amethio, and new captures in Pokemon Horizons Mega Voltage. Let's talk about it. Here's my reaction to and review for Pokemon Horizons episode 101. With the Rising Volt Tacklers back together, we opened this episode with Murdoch showing Roy how to steer the Brave Olivine. This was really cool. Roy is basically the captain of this group now because of Freed's absence, and Murdoch even mentions this by saying to Roy that he gets to decide where the Rising Volt Tacklers go next. This leads to the group deciding to go to Naranja Academy back in Paldea, so they can talk with Director Clavel and Gita about Lockweum, the Explorers, and the Strong Spheres. When they arrive to the Academy, I love the little tidbits of Roy, Liko, and Dot mentioning how nostalgic it is to be there, but we quickly get into the conversation with Clavel and Gita, and honestly, we don't really learn too much. This scene is more just to update them on everything that's been going on, but also to reaffirm us that basically everyone at the Academy knows that the Rising Volt Tacklers are innocent. After that, they go talk with Jacques, and this scene again is more just a recap of what happened. I'm assuming that we'll get more out of these characters later, and this was just to loop them in, especially because Jacques mentions keeping each other updated. While all this is happening, Ulta ends up getting into trouble, which leads into Dendra and Nemona chasing him out to the courtyard, and when the rest of the gang runs into them, Nemona instantly challenges Roy to a battle after noticing his Mega Ring. And this battle is really the main focus of the episode. Now, to make it more interesting, this is a double battle where the first person to get a knockout wins. Roy's Crocolore and Lucario versus Nemona's Palma and Ribombee. This is pretty cool because we get to see moves like Pollen Puff in the anime, where Nemona ends up healing her Palmot but then damaging Crocolore with the same move. But then Crocolore jumps in the way of the move as she's trying to heal again, and instead, Crocolore gets to heal himself. During the battle though, Dot ends up receiving a call from none other than Penny, who has some useful information. That being a map of all the Lockweum sightings in Paldea. This is huge, and most likely means that we're going to be seeing the Rising Volt Tacklers staying in the Paldea region for the time being and going to various locations on the map. Several episodes ago now, we got the reveal that Zerk and Onio were going to be searching for Amethio, and we finally get an update on that in this episode. But it's very brief, and I'm honestly not a fan of how little we've been seeing of the Explorers so far in the time skip, but I'm sure that'll be increasing very soon. Back at Naranja Academy though, Roy decides to Mega Evolve Lucario, and obviously Nemona responds by terastallizing her Palmot into a fighting type. This was so exciting, and the soundtrack here is really good. The battle here is also pretty solid, but I would have rather just them focus on Palmot and Lucario here. At least they didn't forget about the other two Pokemon though. That being said, Roy ends up winning the battle, and I don't really like this. Nemona is supposed to be a champion rank trainer, the strongest in Paldea other than Gita, yet she's losing to Roy, who's been a trainer for 2 years max. I really think Nemona should have won here. That being said, the episode ends with Penny challenging Dot to a battle for the next episode. So overall, I think this was a pretty alright one. Here's my reaction to and review for Pokemon Horizons episode 102. This episode picks up right back where we left off in episode 101 with Dot and Penny's battle. Quaxwell and Tinkatuff versus Sylveon and Flareon. And this was a pretty solid battle. Near the beginning, Quaxwell lands an attack on Sylveon, which randomly causes it to start acting really weird. This was because of Sylveon's cute charm ability, causing it to be infatuated with Penny's Pokemon. I like how they went about this, and Dot having Tinkatuff attack Quaxwell to snap him out of it was a unique strategy. The battle was a bit short, but I did like the inklings we got of both Dot's and Penny's tactics because, let's be honest, personality-wise, they're pretty similar characters. In the end, Penny actually wins though, and even though I feel like Dot did more to deserve a victory, that's not always how Pokemon battles go, so I'm not mad about it. I do feel like the continuation of this episode from the last is a little odd because the rest of the episode after this has nothing to do with Naranja Academy. The next day, the gang goes to explore one of the Lockweum sightings on the map that Penny gave them, and it turns out it's actually an area they've been to with Rhyfort during the Terastal debut arc. They all briefly split off, but quickly get back together for a picnic provided by Murdoch. And I love the callback to Liko putting together that picnic for Dot on the Brave Olivine way back in early Horizons before Dot started becoming more open. It's just a nice indicator of how far she and Liko's relationship has come since then. After this, Ult finds a strange coin on the ground, which causes Roy to proclaim that he's not falling for that trick again. Guess how long that lasted. And not only does Roy fall for Gimmighoul's trick of getting everyone to gather coins for it, but so does the rest of the gang, except Liko, who gets split up from them. Pagogo also decides to resort to its old ways and wanders off from Liko, encountering the very same Charcadet from before. Back with Liko, however, she encounters a rampaging Scovillain affected by Lockweum, who's chasing some wild baby Pokemon. Meowscarada definitely holds her own here, but whenever Happiny starts to run away, Liko goes off to save it from getting attacked. This is when the hero we all need appears.
Chicken jockey!
Okay, Charcadet and Pagogo step in to save the day, and I honestly really like this. For being so small, Charcadet is actually really strong. Just look at the little guy go. And with this opening, it gives Pagogo enough time to absorb the Lockweum from Scovillain and end the battle. Earlier in the episode, it was revealed that this Scovillain was a trainer that went missing, so we get the reunion of the two afterwards, and it's really sweet. After all was said and done, Liko is saying bye to the Charcadet when it actually ends up requesting to be caught and join Liko's team. This was semi-expected, and I low-key got spoiled, but it was still really amazing to see. My only gripe here is I wish we had a full episode instead of shoehorning an unrelated battle at the beginning, because it would have probably made this capture feel so much more satisfying. Either way though, I'm really excited to see what comes of Charcadet joining Liko's team. I feel like this is such a great fit. Really solid episode. Here's my reaction to and review for Pokemon Horizons episode 103. Well, it turns out the Rising Volt Tacklers are broke, so they need to raise some money, and the best way to do that quickly is by having Dot and Ino collab on a huge live event. So the episode opens up with Dot and Ino's announcement video for the event out in Lavencia, and it cuts to Liko watching it and shouting in excitement. Alright, that's one thing I don't like about this episode. Liko's known Dot as Nidothing for over a year now, yet she's still excited about her as if she's this huge big deal, when really Nidothing is just her friend Dot. They really harp on this during the episode though, and Liko even gets a ticket despite the fact that Dot says she'll let her in anyway. She selfishly just took a ticket from someone else that could have got one. Anyway, we then cut to Zerk and Onya, who are relaxing on a beach for some reason, because they've still had no luck finding Amethio, and the announcement video starts playing on the TV in the background. This is where we learn that Zerk is a huge Nidothing fan, and he even gets a ticket to the event before it blows away in the wind. While he's being depressed about that, Liko, Roy, and Dot are killing time until the show, when they encounter Zerk and Onya, which looks like it's about to be a confrontation, but Zerk is still depressed, so instead, they agree to help him find his ticket. Also, Dot ends up offering her ticket to him, and like, Liko and Roy getting tickets is one thing, but why on earth did Dot get one? Anyway, he declines because he notices Dot has the same Pokemon as Nidothing, I wonder why, and so the majority of this episode is them searching for the ticket, and I'm just gonna be honest, this was so useless and boring to me. Surely there had to be something a little more interesting here. I don't even want to talk about it in depth, but it basically just ends up with them battling a Wugtrio who happens to hold Zerk's ticket, and they get it back and all go to the venue. Honestly, this part was really chill, and I love that Nidothing chose Zerk to come on stage since she saw how big of a fan he was and how much he had to go through to get his ticket. It even ends with Zerk accidentally discovering Dot is Nidothing, but his shock quickly fades as she runs back into frame with the full costume on. This was a much lighter episode, which we were kind of due for one after the last 4 or 5 were pretty major, so I'm not mad about it. In fact, it ends on a pretty cool cliffhanger where Zerk and Onya reveal that they aren't working for the Explorers anymore and ask the Rising Volt Tacklers to help them find Amethio. Here's my reaction to and review for Pokemon Horizons episode 104. This episode follows up on the previous one where Zerk and Onya asked Liko to help them find Amethio, and now they're at his house to search for clues. This is where Liko learns about Amethio's mother, who was previously revealed to have passed away in a car accident. While they're discussing, Charcadet seems interested in a few childhood photos of Amethio and his Scarlet before it evolved. Eventually, they discover a photo of Amethio playing with his Pokemon on a beach while his mother's watching. So Zerk and Onya give Amethio's dad, Cervantes, a call to ask about the beach photo, but he's not in some skyscraper office overlooking the city anymore. He's in a warehouse. This is where we learn that he got ousted from his position as president of Exceed by Spinel. Anyway, Cervantes gives the group the location of the island, and it turns out Amethio has been there ever since everything went down at Laqua. We actually get to see a bit of how he eventually got to that island, because he was being chased down by explorers grunts, so I assume Spinel was trying to capture him. Also, this episode really demonstrates how the events of 1 year ago have affected Amethio, because he actually lost his grandfather and he blames himself for it. Once Liko, Zerk, and Onya arrive at the island and update Amethio on what's going on, you can really tell how hopeless he feels. Amethio even says there's absolutely nothing he can do. This prompts Liko to remind him about when they got trapped in the cave, and he taught her never to give up even if you hit some roadblocks along the way. Immediately after that, Charcadet challenges Scarlet to a battle. Even though Scarlet is obviously 100 times stronger than Charcadet, I liked Liko's willingness to honor what her Pokemon wants. Also, this battle isn't actually as straightforward as you might imagine. Charcadet actually holds its own here by dodging several attacks, trying out different strategies, and withstanding attacks from Scarlet. This all culminates in a really cool moment where Charcadet musters all of its strength, dodges a powerful attack, and lands a hit on Scarlet. I'm really enjoying this Pokemon so far. Obviously, Scarlet easily wins after this, but I love Pokemon Horizons' ability to develop the protagonist Pokemon with without diminishing the awesome strength of their opponents. This has been something the series has excelled at since it started, and I really like that. This battle also serves as motivation for Amethio, and after it's over, he says he's ready to start figuring out what he can do against Spinel. Zerk and Onya even pass on the Zygarde cube so that Amethio can start finding his grandfather's Pokemon. I'm so glad Amethio is back in this story. It really feels like this arc is slowly starting to come together. Here's my reaction to and review for Pokemon Horizons episode 105. After last week's sort of heavy episode, we get a much more lighthearted one, and it starts during a huge thunderstorm with the return of the one and only Mighty G. Since it's storming, he takes up the mantle once again and rushes into the ocean to save anyone that might need help. This leads to him finding Amethio and taking him into a nearby cave to wait out the storm. What came next was just unadulterated wholesome content. Mighty G really helped out Amethio here, more so than just saving him from the storm. He provided him some food, helped him prepare a meal, taught him how to properly dry his clothes, and my favorite part was when Mighty G was about to leave, Amethio hits us with the, "It's okay, I'm used to eating alone." This character has taken a total 180 since the beginning. I actually care about him a lot now, and this was kinda sad, but also makes sense because he was alone on the island for a long time. That being said, Mighty G ends up eating the meal and spending the rest of the night with Amethio, and the next morning the storm clears up and Mighty G heads out. Now, this episode isn't a two-parter, but the rest of the episode after this is completely different and doesn't tie in at all with the first part. Now that the sun's out and the weather's nice, the Rising Volt Tacklers decide to have a little beach day, which is awesome. I love the slice of life antics in this episode. Lucario swimming around, Liko, Crocalor, and Meowscarada relaxing in tubes, even Orla and Molly get in on the action. Now, the main focus of this section is Gimmighoul, who's out watching a slick Goldengo surfing. Seeing Gimmighoul so excited and inspired to meet Goldengo was really sweet. Since Dot isn't a big fan of swimming, she instead spends the day researching and getting tricked by Gimmighoul to give it coins. This all leads into Murdoch and Cap showing up with surfboards, ready to join in on the fun, and Quaxwell looks longingly because it wants to surf too. This finally gets Dot to get in the water, and Gimmighoul is here too. Honestly, this moment was really cool, especially because when it fell in, Dot jumped in the water to save it. Once the waves arrive, Dot sees Gimmighoul staring off at Goldengo, and she finally makes the connection that this Pokemon keeps making them collect coins so it can evolve someday. So later on, she makes the decision to catch it and help it with its goal. Alright, so I like this capture for Dot, but now she's gonna have two Steel-type Pokemon at some point. And in the series where characters don't have full teams, I would have liked to see some variety. Also, the way they did this episode makes the capture feel a bit underwhelming. I would have liked more time to explore their relationship because they barely interacted since Gimmighoul was reintroduced a few episodes ago. I honestly thought Roy was going to get it, but don't mind that Dot caught it either. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the capture, but the execution was not as good in my opinion. So now our protagonists each have new Pokemon in this arc, Liko with Charcadet and Dot with Gimmighoul. I just wish they'd tell us more about Roy's Lucario already.